Welcome to Meet the Artist at Framethrower. My name is Ben Kusold, and in this episode I'll be speaking with Amanda Renfroe, co-head of animation at Steamroller Studios. Amanda has a somewhat unique profile in that she started in production at Steamroller, worked her way into animation, and as a lead and head of animation she's been handling both. Steamroller is a very fast-growing and ambitious studio, and in her 7 years there, Amanda has become a crucial team member and leader. The talk was enlightening for me in getting a solid behind the scenes look at how a company of this caliber is run, and Amanda's view on management, her passion, and just her engagement is very inspiring. I enjoyed our talk very much, and I'm sure you will as well. So here she is, Amanda Renfroe. Now, we were just talking about the Zoom fatigue and how it's very real. but
It is.
but you had been venturing into to the studio, I guess, as
Y-
co-head of animation. It's nice to have a closer feel on it all.
it is. And like one main component of that is we have something in the studio called the battle board. And this board has like all of our projects, upcoming projects, who are we going to put on what? And that is something just not easily done over Zoom at all. I mean, there's a couple
No,
of software that try to get close to it, but it's just not it's a very hands-on collaborative thing. So it's definitely made that part of the job way easier to do in person. And you have
yeah.
information on the fly and hey, can I get this? Do you have the date for this? Timeline, resource? Like it's a lot nicer.
Mm.
Of course, handling everything at a safe distance, it's a giant board, so we can kind of, keep our distance and assess that. But I'll admit, it's been nice. It's been very nice to go and talk to humans.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there would also be a lot of satisfaction of having a real post-it and moving it, or getting a green post-it instead of a red one. I don't know how you do it, but I feel
Yeah.
like there would be a real the accomplishment of moving that stuff around, and
Yes,
of course, yeah.
there's pros and cons to both. This is a really funny conversation because you had Aaron Gilman on, I believe, right?
I love him.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and then I've worked closely with Jalil for over 7 years, and they both have the opposite idea of the board. Uh, one that loves the physical, having the physical board, and the other, is very digital. So it's really fun. They both have their pros and cons. They both do.
Mm,
At some point, I'm sure we're gonna have to go digital just to at the sheer expansion we're going at right now. I don't know. We either need to knock down some walls to get a bigger board, or we're gonna
yeah.
have to make the hop and skip into a digital realm.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna ask about that too because you guys must be feeling the demand as well. Like it's crazy how the need for content these days, it seems.
it's insane how much content is just asking to be created out there. And I mean, the quality bar is jumping high,
Yep.
not just for video games, television, feature, style, look. I mean, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's super exciting, but it's definitely a lot. So, um, like right now we're already planning like well into 2022 and figuring out, you know, uh, where do we want to move forward and, build a collaborative partnership with.
Mm.
There's just so many, and it's very exciting. It's a good problem for everybody to have. I
Yeah.
mean, uh, we all need more, content that's enjoyable and experimental and
Yeah.
getting out there. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was gonna ask about your style, the pursuit of like what your pursuit is because um the first I saw of steamrollers was this it was like a teaser for it was like this girl doing kung fu in like an urban setting, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was very like it had that nice, fresh, snappy kind of feel to it. That we're seeing a lot of these days with Arcane and Spider Verse, of course. But it's like, is that the style that you're kind of pursuing as well? I was just looking at your demo reel, and it has that stylized feel to it. Is that the general direction, or
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the kind words. Yeah, Master was our second teaser.
Master? Yeah.
And we did Spice Frontier, a teaser for that a couple years ago. And it's definitely a look we're very passionate about. I mean, the vision from Jalil, our CEO and Steamroller is to tell our own stories. And we found ourselves, in this kind of starting to build our own look. It is very much a combination or a merge of bringing that 2D. I'm loving everybody going on twos and threes, and we're on that train too. It makes everything feel a little bit more punchy, and you get to really experiment with, do I want my faces on one, my body on twos, this section on one? It's a lot of very active choice making within the animation. Um, and we're just very passionate about pushing the quality and where can we go with the craft.
Mm.
And along with that, share, tell our own stories. At some point, after we get through these teasers, we want to make television show or get more into feature, more into character animation. That is definitely, everyone loves to be in character performances. It's a lot of fun. Who doesn't?
Mm.
But yeah, there's definitely a certain style and look that we're drawn to as a steamroller, but we don't limit ourselves in the type of animation that we do.
Mm.
You'll see with a lot of our partner projects, we're working with game studios, commercial television, smaller, snippets. And a lot of that ranges from realistic mocap, realistic keyframe, creature, animal, facial, realistic facial, so on and so forth. And animation is animation.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we just care to push that as far as we possibly can. And it's really exciting to see, Spider-Verse and Arcane and
Yeah.
people really starting to step into that realm. And I think we're going to see a lot of cool looks coming out the next couple of years. And yeah, we're just excited to be a part of that train and further develop what you're seeing from Master and
Mm.
Spice Frontier, because we definitely have that stuff cooking in the oven. So
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. That's great to hear. And I know for most animators and fans of animation, it's cool to see how this very stylized way of animating is winning terrain, and this is like you getting more and more people on board, and people are seeing that this is a real trend, and there's this money to be made, which at the end of it is gonna have to be the factor that pushes a lot of people over.
mhm.
But it's cool to see that that this change is coming, because like we've all been waiting for it for years and years. So it's, yeah. I was gonna ask you, you have like a little bit of an unusual profile in that you've both been worked heavily with production side and as an animator as well. So it's like these two um, normally quite far apart groups that you've been dealing with equally, or did you start as a producer or an animator, or?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess kind of going a little bit back to college, I did go to school for animation.
Mm.
That's always where I saw myself going. I loved it and very passionate uh, person in college. And then I had one job outside of college where I was just an animator, and I came on for a couple of months for short-term contracts, and I love the place. It's this little studio out in Tennessee, and they treated me really well. I mean, I was that kid who like showed up at their door because I knew someone there, and I was like, "Hey, um, I'm here to learn. I'm eager to get in the industry. Is there something I could work on?" And they were like, "Do you know Softimage?" And I said, "I'll learn it." Um, so that's kind of how I got my first, job within the industry. And about a year after that, I found myself, not quite, you're young, right? And you don't quite understand what you need or what you want at that day and age. And I knew I just couldn't be an animator sitting at a desk. And for those that do that, completely fine. I felt something was missing for me. And I didn't really know what it was at the time. I didn't want to go out to California, and it was a bad time when all the layoffs, the studios were happening, and it was like senior positions or senior level artists going for the, junior level. And I was like, I'm not going to go fight people who are so much more talented than myself. I just have too much to learn. I'm not confident in what I want yet. So that's where I kind of stumbled across Steamroller. I was like, well, let's check out what's going on in Florida. They had a small website. They were like, it had Jalil's photo, Keith Lackey, and Adam Meyer on there. It gave a little bio, and I was like, okay, they're working on a game. This game is cool. I'm interested. Like, let's talk. Let's just see what happens. And sure enough, I sent in my application, and Keith replied within hours, and he's like, "Hey, my friend thinks your reel has potential." And I was like, "Friend, is that it has to be Jalil, right?" I was like, "Okay, cool. This really great animator thinks I got potential, So I met them like in 2014, and we just had a casual conversation, and pretty much it ended as, "Hey, we're not in the need of an animator right now. Would you be interested in doing some production work for Deadwood?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, of course." I mean, I directed my own film and student directed my own film in college. I was like, I'm great at organizing. I can do that. I'll catch on quickly. And I've never made a game before, but hey, let's see how this goes. So they were willing to take the gamble on me, just to, kind of go into the trenches with them on how we were going to make Deadwood at the time. And I was training on animation, when times were a little bit slower, Jalil would show me what he's working on. We'd go through workflows. We started off with realistic facial animation, which I love, 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 love. Facial animation. So it was absolutely, I mean, every day was fantastic because I, not only am learning so heavily on the production side, I mean, completely new realm for me on understanding, what that role fully entails. And also training to step into an animation role at some point whenever they needed more animation resources, which was probably about a year and a half in, when we kind of discovered that we were a part service-based company. And that, we were going to heavily focus in on animation and pushing animation quality. And that's kind of where I made that transition over, and we brought on someone who was way more qualified to take on a production role. But it was a fantastic learning experience because I feel like, I mean, you can, if you understand the inner workings of production, I feel like, you as an artist is really helping out the production team because you understand how difficult that job is. They have one of the hardest jobs in this industry, and it's a lot of help when your team can see them sweating and being that filter and keeping track of all the deadlines while, the team just wants to be creative. So I learned a lot through that process.
Oh, I bet. And so you said you were trained at the same time. Was it like did did you have hours within your working day to focus on, I don't know, what's walk cycles, like all to get all the basics down as an animator, or how did you get that mentorship and the
Yeah.
training you needed while working as a producer?
Yeah, that's oh, I'm gonna like search my memory bank because I know um yeah, I know I definitely had time during the day, which was fantastic when that schedule lined up.
Hmm.
But I was also young and super hungry just to animate. So a lot of
Yeah.
like those smaller projects I'd take home with me and
Hmm.
I think I once upon a time might have did like a sprout and he's like the little deadwood
Oh,
guy
right.
running around in the game. Yeah. And I think I might have done a couple of animations with him outside of work because yeah, I was just antsy to get stuff in front of Jalil and be like, okay, like
Yeah.
what's this look like? What can I do better? Am I doing something wrong in my workflow or how do I adapt it? Because there's not just one workflow to do things. I remember thinking there was when I was younger, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't work that way, Amanda.
Yeah. But it
But yeah, go ahead.
no,
Sorry.
it's also curious because it's like you're on your first big production and you want to be part of the team, and you and on the side of it you have to pick up this new skill, which is a big steep learning curve. But I was how was that first production for you? Because my first one was I've heard so many stories, but I was like it can be very intimidating and at the same time super exciting. How did you find it?
Yeah, are we thinking in terms of when I made that swap over into animation or still kind of juggling as production manager and animator on Deadwood?
Let's go with both.
Let's go with both. Okay. Okay, we'll start with Deadwood since that was first and just to kind of give a little bit of a premise to that because I am by no means was a project manager on that project for long because we just wrapped it this year. So
Oh.
yeah, it's been going on for since pretty much I started at the studio, and it's very exciting to see that project wrap up. And it has expanded much bigger than the 5-person team we once were in that first year. Um, so once I started taking that transition over more into an animator role, there definitely had to be a little bit more of a clear cut. We were a small studio, and when you're at that small studio, you do wear a lot of hats. I mean,
Mm.
I learned how to run a Kickstarter. Our first campaign failed, and then we reran it and figured out everything we did wrong in that first campaign launch and tried to fix that in the second one, which ended up being a success. But I learned how to manage social medias, and I am not a social media type of person.
Mm.
Figuring out how the world does the industry work within this realm. Um, I had no experience of working with games. I learned what a GDC or oh my gosh, a GDD. There we go.
I'm not.
Um,
I work in games and I don't know what that is.
Game development document.
Oh, that
I
sounds
think
about.
did I sell it?
Well, well, yeah. It sounded like you knew what you were talking about, but I did. I don't know what it is.
It is essentially the almanac
Oh,
for the game.
oh,
Um,
like a Bible.
yeah, exactly. It's got everything you need to know about what that game is.
Ah.
Um, and I think ours might have been only a couple pages in the earlier days. And I think those things are like, like you said, it's an almanac or a Bible. It's meant to have everything and thicken it. The
Yeah,
team has done a much better job with it now than what
mm,
I had it back in the day. But we were doing the best we could with
of
what we
course.
knew. Um, but no, it was tricky, especially since it was our first time for everybody really
Mm,
developing that game and learning who we were as a studio and how we wanted to hold ourselves. So it very much felt like we were all trying to navigate it together. which was really fun. I mean, I love reflecting back on those days because it very much is five people in a room,
Mm.
you know, not e we don't even know what we have yet, and we're just trying to, you know, tell our own stories. It's been there since day one. That's
Wow.
always the dream.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, balancing the time was always tricky, and let alone there was a part in there where I took on an extra gig, working on a TV show, just trying to also get more experience in that animation realm because I know I'm very realistic with myself and I'm like, all right, in animation it's just so hard. There's a
Yeah.
lot to learn
Yep.
in animation. So I was like, okay, I just need to keep practicing and keep working hard and eventually, hopefully, things will click.
Mm.
Those notes that you get like 3, 4 times and you get them on different projects and you're like, I've heard what headspace means so many times, and I still get that note. Why am I getting that note? And then you get that one piece where you're like,
Yeah, yeah.
I understand it. Um, but yeah, there was definitely a lot to juggle in that realm, and I guess going a little bit more to the animation side when I made that hop and skip over. Trying to remember what my first. Oh
No,
yeah.
your first project as an animator?
Yeah, with Steamroller.
Mm.
I mean, technically it was a little bit of Deadwood, but I did jump into some facial shapes for Agents of Mayhem with Volition.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
that's a complex area to jump straight into, the facial
Yeah.
animation.
Yes. I love it though. I love facial
Yeah.
animation. I'd like to think that was one of my strengths. My weakness was definitely body mechanics at the time.
Mm.
Um, and that project in particular taught me a lot about shape and what does graphic shapes mean? What does appeal mean? How do I apply this to a character
Mm.
um, without breaking the model? And there's so much to understand, like what type of facial animation are you in? How
Yeah.
limited are you by the controls? So where do you have to adjust? And um, I find all that type of work very rewarding because there's so many components you need to like dance and sing together in order for it to work in harmony
Yeah.
and to also be true to the character.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
No, 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 it's great.
We can talk about facial animation all day if you want, Ben.
I haven't done a lot of it, but uh, I assume the feeling is similar as when you get into a really good spot with any animation. It's like almost it feels like a conversation back and forth between you and the piece of, is this okay? No, okay, that didn't work. I said, this is great. Yeah, let's go that way. And you're
Yes.
in this kind of flow where you feel like you're like a conduit of something bigger. And I guess you could probably apply that to a lot of creative endeavors, but it's like this. No, I can see, yeah, that I guess that's the appeal of all of it. Just finding what you like and then, pursue it. Did you, was that, and then you worked strictly as an animator on that show?
Yes. Yeah, I was an animator, I think, on the next couple of shows. And then I became a lead on Prey. And yeah, that learning every day, Ben.
Yeah,
Every day.
it's a steep curve. Did
Yeah.
you were kind of like you had like a look as if that happened fast? Was it overwhelming when it did happen?
Um, I'm gonna say yes, but there's also a level of excitement
Of
that
course, of
comes with
course.
it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's I mean, yes, I would say it came fairly early on. And, I Jill has been a wonderful mentor to me throughout this process. So I never felt completely
Mm,
flat on my face, but I've definitely had to figure out, how do I hold, you know, myself accountable? How do I make sure that I'm being clear with my team? What
mm,
information do they need versus understanding that I'm completely overwhelming them? What can I lean on, or what tasks can I lean on them with, or what responsibilities can I delegate? And all of this, you kind of still continually learn from your first time you've been a lead to head of animation. You're always looking to finesse those skill sets. Um, and yeah, that first lead project, I had three animators who were, fairly junior at the time. They're all wonderful now and doing awesome work.
mm.
But I remember definitely particularly stressing myself out with it. I mean, you can't really help it. I think it's natural and kind of
Yeah.
healthy to a certain degree because all you want to do is do everybody right.
Mm,
Um, so I learned how I was really observing how Jalil was handling rounds and, how much attention do I need to give the team versus letting them work and make the
mm,
mistakes. How do I give them notes? Is it a draw over? Do I sit at their desk? Do I let them problem solve through it a little bit?
mm.
There's definitely a fine balance and no two people are the same at all.
Of course.
Yeah, so, and let alone you're also animating your own shot. I remember during that time, especially, and we could talk about work-life balance, but I love it. I just love it. I was young. I was ready to gun ho into it. And I'd wake up early. I'd come into the studio early and I'm like, all right, I'm going to animate my shot and make sure that when I'm talking to the team, I feel confident in what I'm telling them because I understand how to make the shape. I think that's really important for leads and supervisors to at least touch, whatever assets are in there
Mm,
and understand what's happening within the rig in order to clearly
yeah.
communicate, yeah, what's
Yeah.
happening when the team runs into that issue.
Mm.
And I had one animator. He would come in at the same time I would, and he'd always stop by my office and he's like, "Hey Amanda, so I have like a ton of questions and I just want to get your feedback." I'd always get a little nervous because I'm like, well, I came in here to work and make
So,
sure that I understood how to clearly communicate this. I was very honest with
yeah.
my team because I think there's a lot to show in showing, yeah, there's a little humility there. And
Mm,
um so of course I'd go over to his desk and we'd talk about it and we'd figure it out together, which is honestly kind of better process as
yeah.
I'm starting to discover rather than trying to look perfect essentially
Yeah.
and kind of giving this false illusion that yes, I knew this answer right on the top of my head and
Mm.
here are the answers. I had no struggles at all. It's just not the case. It's just not realistic, Ben. It's
No,
just
no. Yeah, I always found it refreshing and I don't know. It was nice when you were confirmed that your questions were good questions. When people was like,
mm,
you know what, I don't know, or I'll figure that out, or that's we should look into that kind of thing. Uh, be,
mm-hmm.
because it's like it kind of like it ensures you as an animator that like first of all there's very blatant honesty which is always appreciated from your superior, and then also just like yeah, we're figuring it out together, and like you said, showing the the showing that we're all human here, everyone is figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's just like there's so many things that come up, like you having the answers to everything is that would be silly. So
Silly and exhausting.
oh
Why would you
yeah,
want to do that?
yeah, that's a lot of work. You did have a really good point about leads and soups being uh, involved in the project to a degree where they know like it's kind of like they know what, at least if you're talking about a specific controller, they would be able to be involved in a conversation. That's like so important. I think it's just as an animator that you feel that the your responsibility is within the scene and delivering. If something is not working, someone else that's kind of going on behind the scenes. But it's important to know that that umbrella over you is solid. And I talked to when Aaron Gilman did this, that your colleague now, who's I always he was always great when I worked for him at DNEG, and he was so good at just, like, you knew exactly when something came up, he would catch it, and he wouldn't know it all the time at all, but you could just, you knew that the ball was rolling, like something, it would be taken care of, and you wouldn't have to worry about it too much. because you had a tight schedule with your own your own deadlines and on. So yeah,
someone to protect you and not be scared to get their hands a little dirty. Like, all right, let's figure out what's going on here. Let's get a full picture, and I will figure out an answer for you, whether it's the answer from me or from someone else. But we're gonna go find it. It's definitely reassuring.
Yeah, and I bet your experience in production came in very handy when you started to go into management as well.
Yes, definitely. Understanding those pivotal questions in conversations, whether it's, about a specific task or a meeting, you're really painting a picture. And if you don't put enough information within that picture, then sometimes it gets stuck as that incomplete photo. Sometimes it gets lost. Sometimes it gets swept under the rug. And if you're not always consistently, identifying, okay, are there any bottlenecks? Are there any technical issues? Is this a problem within our pipeline? Is this, do we have a clear outline of what our priorities are? Is there something going on at home? Is there something that's just taking you out of your mental headspace for work? There's so many factors within that it has to be nurtured and really kind of dig and investigate what is the root of that issue. And typically it's not just one thing. It could be a couple of things, and you have to be able to call those action calls. Be like, okay, I see where this is happening. Do you mind talking to so and so? I'm gonna go take care of such and such, and then we'll reconvene and see if that's done any improvement on that task. Absolutely, kind of. I don't know. I guess kind of it's making sure there's clear direction when you leave a conversation. You come in with laying out the land, understanding what the agenda is, and leaving knowing that there's action going to be taken on things. If it's a slow process or it has a bunch of steps to it, like you said, the ball's rolling.
Yeah.
And that's really all that matters. And as long as it's communicated that the ball is rolling, then things are happening.
Yeah. It seems like I had another talk with Edmund Butler, who's a head of animation at Cinecite, and he had a decade at Disney before he went back to London, and he was, one thing I noticed when I worked for him on John Carter, he was very involved with production. They were extremely close and friendly, and you could just feel like this united team. And I didn't appreciate it enough, I think, at the time, because it was my very first production. But later I saw examples of the very opposite, of when you have like leads and soups for the creatives, and then you have line for, like, the whole, it's like there's a schedule, there's creativity, and it's like,
yes.
and it seems to me, and also that's what Eamon said as well, it's like it's something to the extent of leadership. Good leadership comes when you have like a one foot firmly planted in each of those, so you can both appreciate like we have to deliver at some point, and this is a team of people working very hard, like you said. If producers don't look like they're working hard, they're just very good at it. I think.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And
they're not beating sweat. They are behind the scenes somewhere.
Yeah.
I swear.
And then you have the other foot planted in, you need to deliver at a quality and it needs to be appealing and all the things that we like to do. So it seems to me like it's like the great leadership comes out of those two, and it seems like you were just kind of like on a fast track too, because you had those two sides of it. So like, and also within Steamroller, I guess, is that your idea of I'm trying to get at good leadership and what it entails. I guess it's a big one to open up. Now I kind of stumble into it.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it is definitely it's definitely a big one, and I think it kind of have to define what's at the core. And if you're bringing people onto your team that has good integrity, is fearless, strong communication, the passion and the drive and the accountability. I know those are like damn, I got to be all those things, but it's not, when you have that nice grouping of people, and I'm not saying you have to be perfect at these every time, because the thing is if you bring enough of those people in onto your team, they're going to be essentially keeping you in check and you keeping them in check, because there are going to be stressful times. There are going to be times where, there are tough calls to make and you think you're making the right one, but then you listen to everybody that's around you and realize you hadn't even thought of some other route. And you're like, oh, wow, yeah, I almost just made a huge mistake going in this direction. So it's impossible to do this with just one person who has that mentality. You definitely have to have a group of people with those traits in order to get that strong leadership bond to ripple through the team. And then, really training and practicing, how does that, go into your leads? How does that go into production? How does that go into the artists? And I mean, I would say right now, it's something we're heavily focusing in on. We have a lot of great people with those qualities that are a pleasure to work with, and they don't hesitate to speak their mind if they're not feeling something is quite right. We like to have those discussions and figure out, what is the best option moving forward, or if that is the best option moving forward and not everybody is happy, then let's just talk about it, because leadership does have to have each other's back, even if it's not something you agree with, because the intentions, if you have good leadership, the intentions are always good. Like there's always that ground where you're taking care of people, especially the higher you go up into leadership. You are making choices that have to do with people's lives, and that's not something to take light. That's a huge responsibility. So knowing the why decisions are made, hearing everybody out and figuring out what the best plan of attack is, and being willing to accept the consequences if it's a failure. And I don't mean like consequences as in like you're fired, not in that type of degree, but there are definitely, things where it's like, yeah, you know what, I could have handled that a lot better. Do you have some advice? Or how do you want to tackle this? Bring the CEO in or CCO, Aaron or Jalil, they come in and you'd be like, yeah, I did this wrong. I'm a little too high stressed, and I'm not quite thinking clearly because I understand the gravity of this mistake. Do you have any advice, or do you see how I can possibly resolve this with whatever it might be? And for them to be like, yeah, no, you definitely made that mistake. But here's what I would do, and here's the bigger picture playing field that we can talk about, because I think we can pivot here and that'll fix it. So it's conversations like that where you do need to understand the gravity of all the decisions that you're making. But if you have all those checks and balances in place, and you have those people that do genuinely care about the people, then your intentions will always be good, and we're just trying to do that right. We are creatives. Steamroller
Mm.
is made from creatives, not people who's more on the business side. It's not investors. It's not money driven. It's not marketing driven. It's very creative driven.
Mm.
Um, and there's definitely been a lot learned through the years, the good times, the bad times, the smaller mistakes, the bigger mistakes, and um, there's a lot we still, I don't know, you could say that we still don't know, but we're making calls based off of what's at our core. And that's, again, like your integrity and doing right by the people. And currently, right now, we're working on new systems within the studio
Mm.
where, just to tie a little bit into, because, the decisions made by leadership, which has to do a lot with culture and philosophy and, um, what that work life balance looks like. What is our relationships with our partners? We're really starting to, not even starting, we're just really hunkering down and focusing it internally.
Mm.
And especially with Aaron coming on board, he's brought over coffee ketchups. And coffee ketchups was where, you're okay. Yeah. So you know exactly where I'm at, thinking of you guys. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we're introducing those into our system because we're expanding at a stage that is quick.
Mm.
Our animation team is about 70, 72, and it's a lot. And we have about 5, 6 supervisors who are helping, manage that. We have, definitely probably like around 6 or 8 projects right now.
Wow.
So yeah, it's talk about so much content out there, and it's a lot of fun content too. That's why I'm like, it's so hard when we have to turn down projects now.
Yeah.
Um,
But
but
72 animators, that's a huge team.
it's yeah, it
Wow.
I think we were 50 or a little below 50 before this year. I don't know, someone's got to check me on that. But we haven't been the same studio size any year. I mean, I think 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we might have been 30, 36,
Wow.
somewhere around there. Yeah, it's insanity. So it's a lot of people to
Mm.
manage.
Yeah.
So that's where we're starting. Oh, go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just gonna talk. Like, I was gonna ask about the culture because like that like rapid growth is that it becomes a real challenge to maintain whatever culture you want to maintain because you have to,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
then,
sorry.
yeah, it makes sense with Aaron Gilman on that front because he was kind of like he was a beating heart at DNEG for the animation team. He was great at that.
Yeah, we're very grateful to have him aboard, and he's definitely adding a lot into really, I guess, yeah, building the systems to supply that support, not only for the now, but also to expand for in the future. And, training has become a big part of who we are. Like each project kind of lived a little bit on its own island, and to a certain degree, it still does. But introducing, a social hour where teams get to kind of combine together and just play games over Zoom and have a
Mm.
drink, they've been having a ton of fun in those, and they'll mix up projects once in a while, and it's good to see them interacting with other team members on other projects, because sometimes you don't get to do that. They're just like, oh, what's that project? I've never heard of it. Oh, there's 2 people I've never heard their names
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
you know um there's something we want to keep about that boutique feel. And
Mm.
I don't think I know Aaron and Jill have been talking about, how big do we want to get? And I mean,
Yeah.
we'll probably expand easily into that 200, 300 range, which
Wow.
I mean, maybe not just the animation. Oh God, I hope not. I don't even know how to handle that. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just with how we're growing, that's where we're projected to go. So we need to make sure we're always training within. We're grooming leadership. Um, the responsibility of all the technical aspects and feeling like you're the only person as a supervisor or as a lead who can solve these issues is just not sustainable.
Mm.
And you're not doing the artist any justice either. They giving them responsibilities and allowing them to grow. I mean, that's stuff that they'll take and they'll learn. And hopefully, if they want to go a leadership route, they have already started exercising those skill sets that they have.
Mm.
And then plus you shouldn't feel like you have to do everything by yourself. It's just
No. Yeah, yeah.
scary.
It's
Yeah.
it can get very scary. Um,
Yes.
I mean, I was gonna ask for like a super short bathroom break if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Go, go,
Okay, thanks.
go.
Be right back.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, Amanda, thank you so much.
Not a problem.
um, I was it was interesting. Like we kind of slid into the whole like culture at work, and I was gonna reference this talk that I found you did about embracing
Oh,
failure, which was super interesting. And it's like when I heard it, and then it was like Aaron's the conversation I had with him kind of echoed, because you both talked so much about relationships, and it seems to me that it's like when you understand the creative side of it, and when you understand the production or the scheduling, that we all like this, we're all on a deadline in some way, and then understanding those two, it's like the higher the next step is the relationships. And you already talked about the culture at work, and understanding that when you give notes that everyone is different. And do you uh, do you have any qualities across the board that you like, that you talked a little bit what you have to do as a lead, but what do you demand from your team as well? Because you said you you trust, there's a lot of trust there, and that will have to come with some, there's some expectations as well. um
yeah. So I guess internally, um, a couple of things that are extremely pivotal, I guess, is like, I mean, communication always being a big one. I always kind
mm,
of feel like communication is can solve a lot, especially if you are very person relationship focused, say, if they're bringing up concerns, if they're struggling, if they're doing something well, if they have a desire to teach or they want a particular training, um, then us knowing that information allows them to equip, you know, the tools that they feel like they need in order to succeed at their project or their long-term goal. If they're not happy, they don't produce the highest possible work that they can. And
mm,
so I guess if we look at it from, say, to the supervisors, because that always trickles down. It's, how your CEO, how do all your head of departments kind of think about things, and then going down to supervisors, which supervisors have a little bit more of that day-to-day interaction with all of the artists. And I think it's really important, especially if you're just coming into a studio environment, understanding what uh, the culture and the mentality and philosophies are, because it's very dangerous when you're in those higher roles, and either maybe you're not confident, or you haven't been there long enough to understand the inner workings and how decisions are made, or maybe you've been traumatized by a past job or
mm,
experience. And um your intentions are always going to be good, but they can also be uh sometimes they can instill a little bit of fear if you're communicating in a I guess in a, I don't want to say a bad way, but communicating in not quite feeling confident, I guess, in what
Mm.
you're saying to your team. Which to back that up, with coffee ketchups, that's really what's supposed to give that more one-on-one type of feel because there's a big power to one-on-ones. And I have that with all of the supervisors.
Mm.
We're starting to slowly open that up, and um, these are much bigger conversations. This is where we actually get to talk about, how has it been working at Steamroller? What are the lows that we've had, and what have we had to do to get out of that? What mistakes have we witnessed and have we made? And this is what we do in order to prevent that.
Mm.
So it's my role to really wield them with those experiences because there's a I would probably argue there's a bit of a uniqueness on how we operate. We work on our own projects as well as service-based projects, and we are very much trying to be that studio that has that balanced
Mm.
work-life mentality and a healthy culture that we're really trying to nurture. We're not perfect and we're still learning and we pivot every single day,
Sure.
but we're really trying to put our best foot forward and build blocks that can trickle through the entire studio. So those one-on-ones are super important to have. And I personally am also learning to delegate a bit more. You're on a project, you think you've mastered delegation, then you find yourself in a busy hole and you don't actually realize you're in it. And then someone says, why can't someone else come in and support you? And you're like, yep, you're right. Thanks for calling me out, but it's true. So even in this stage, that delegation part from me to my supervisors allows them to, come a bit more behind the curtain, see the bigger picture. What are the inner workings? Things are happening. You have to have faith in your leadership team that things are happening.
Mm.
Tools you've requested, uh, the hiring process. Just because you're not in it every day and you don't see it, you do have to tell your team to have faith. And where that comes from is also building trust with them,
Mm.
right? So that's where these one-on-one conversations, this is my opportunity to build that trust with the supervisors and show that we do have their back and their best interests and not, oh, can we always please an artist because they want on a particular project? We
Mm.
actually, maybe they're too strong and we need them to help pull a project out,
Of
and
course.
wielding them with the why gives them the confidence to go to that artist and be like, Steamroller is calling for you. They're putting up the bat signal. Are you gonna take the call? Um, so I know I don't feel like I really answered your question, Ben,
No, this is great.
but but it's definitely something I'm discovering after we've gone through this expansion stage where especially we've done a lot of hire on the supervision side where I do need to share a bit more of that process. And then my hope from there, because part of that teaching them is all of the mistakes that I've made as a supervisor and as a lead and how I didn't really, I didn't use my team to its fullest potential. And
Mm.
I was one of those that felt like I had to do it all. And I had to know everything and I'd be the one on the scene to troubleshoot it. And although there's good times to do that, if you just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, you're not helping out your team. So I want to be able to share all of those mistakes and those stories so that way they can see when that situation
Mm.
pops up on their end that they're ready.
Mm.
Um, Along with our partnerships, it's not just internal, it's also external. Our supervisors are the ones in there representing Steamroller with our partners. And we really treasure our relationships as well with our partners a lot. Like
Yeah.
we want them to feel like we're right there with them in the next room. They hear us when we're stuck on something or we don't have full clarity on a task. How do I communicate that and understand where they might be coming from with something and how we need to interpret that? So it's a lot. It takes
Mm.
multiple meetings. It's not a one and done. Not a two and done, not a three and done. It's a very long-term process. But if you can, chip away at the smaller things, build that trust, then, you have to ask them to take a little bit of a leap of faith and be like, things are happening. I
Mm.
can't update you every day because I'm bouncing everywhere, but in each of these meetings, let's just keep chipping away at it and I'll let you know what's going on. And you can see that we're here to make this, not only better for you, but better for the studio because I see your intentions are good and I could see how passionate you are and gung-ho about it.
Mm.
So it's just some things take time, deadlines, budget, so on and so forth, and we have
Mm.
to work with those parameters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And this trust that you're referring to, I assume that's from Steamroller to clients, but it's also between you as head of to supervisors, and it's between head supervisors and the foot soldier animator, and yeah, I agree that the best projects I've been on as both as an animator and also as a lead, that there you felt that trust both ways, and you see the fruit of it as well. If you're an animator and you feel that trust, you have a little bit more surplus to take a risk maybe, and like, I tried this thing that I thought was cool, and then maybe that could save a whole sequence, or it but
Mm-hmm.
you don't do that if you're micromanaged and someone is breathing down your neck and saying, no, move the finger over there. And
Yes.
I've seen it, how it's a slippery slope. It's tricky because there's also the deadline side of it, and it's like I feel like that's just about it becomes a little bit like a floaty what we're talking about, but it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
pin down, because it's this whole relationship part of it, where it's like you have to feel the trust in order to do good work, so that the dates on the paper, the very tangible things will also make sense. It's like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we tend to forget that we're humans working with humans, because we're all just in our graph editor or whatever, or in our spreadsheet.
Yes.
And it's just cool to hear when the main focus is on the relationships, because that's what we all want. We want to be appreciated for what we do, and then when we are appreciated and we're trusted, we can handle someone telling us that it's not quite at the level that we want. Yeah, it's
Yeah. But let me help you. How do
yeah,
we get there?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The collaborative part of it, so you don't feel like someone is just. Uh, we need to feel like we're more than just a wrench in a toolbox. We need to feel like like there's a reason that we're all called artists, and
Yes.
it's a little bit of a I never really subscribe to it fully, but I understand why it's being used, because that's the intent of it, right? That's what that I assume you at Steamroller, you want your animators to feel like artists, like
Mm-hmm.
if they feel like artists, then everything is working out well. But I also get that it's like some days you like, if you're battling constraints for a week, you don't feel like a visionary.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely a lot, yeah, goes into that. And a lot of people just kind of want to give back to a certain degree too. I think that's why we see so many um instructors and those that want to take leadership routes. It's fun to share knowledge. It's fun to share what you've studied and explain the process of how you took ownership of this shot.
Mm,
How do you support someone creatively? Because like you said, that micromanage it can be exhausting. It's exhausting, and I would argue, animation is it's a very collaborative field. I mean, there's so many components that go into a shot. It's not just the animator.
mm,
Yeah, it's a plethora of people, your supervisor and your director and your lead, and everybody just wants to make it better, but you do have to allow for that breathing room for people to make mistakes. I mean, including yourself, or pitching ideas and maybe understanding, okay, why doesn't that work? And not just someone that says, no, these suck. Sorry, scrap it.
mm.
And you're like, why though? Then you're gonna come back and we might go through this loop again, and it just doesn't work if you're not there to um, yes, give them the freedom to fail, but you got to give them the support to pick them back up and motivate them and inspire them to come
Mm,
back with something even better.
yeah, yeah.
So,
That's just a when you go through that as an animator, it's such a cool dramatic arc of there's like no, and then
yes,
you come in early and you sweat
you
away, and
rise from
then
the ashes and
exactly,
with
it's
your
the
first cup of coffee.
yeah, it's the best. It, well, it definitely sounds like a challenge that with the growing so fast as you're doing, but so you're having these coffee one-on-ones. Something else that I remember Aaron did at DNEG, he had which is probably way easier in person, but he made people who were into cool stuff on the side, he made them do like little talks and lectures about it. uh, I don't know if
Uh,
you should it was fun because we had like there was this girl who was really into Latin cinema, and she gave this talk about Latin cinema, and everyone was just like, "Whoa!" And
oh, that's wonderful.
yeah, there's a lot of cool examples like that. But
We're shooting for that.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
shooting to get more into that, yeah, outside just animation realm.
But that's also asking people to just stay an extra hour on Zoom, and that's a lot. So yeah,
Yeah, Zoom fatigue, it's creeping.
yeah, yeah. So do you feel like in your case that your ambitions are kind of like following along with those of Steamroller still, or like, do you feel like you can keep growing there as an artist and a I guess a leader as well?
Yeah, I do. Very much so. It's kind of laughable when I think of when I first joined Steamroller because I saw myself as this nomadic animator. I was just gonna go wherever the wind blew, um and I never expected to find my forever home so early in my career.
Mm,
And yeah, I have no intentions of leaving this place because I believe strongly about the vision of the studio. That ultimate goal, philosophy wise is people and but the vision of the studio is to tell our own stories. And that excites me so much. And I have seen every single year go by and seen us take steps, responsible steps
mm,
towards that goal. Um, and you can't just drop everything and be like, yeah, guys, we're gonna go make Spice Frontier. Bye, other service projects. There's no such thing as budget. But I, I would like to use the word responsible because we have taken steps to get there, and it's definitely been challenging and it's definitely been hard. And I understand what I was looking for when I first started in this industry. I I love leadership. I love making this a home for, other people in the industry that come here and they feel safe and they feel protected and they feel
mm,
like we have their back and we're there to groom them and get them to their goals. I don't expect them to be like me and they get hired and I'm like, you're never leaving. I know this is your forever home. That's not the mentality. Everyone's got different goals. I'm happy to help, be a part of their journey, essentially. And I still have a lot to learn with being head of animation, with, the 72 animators that we have going on right now and soon to be expanding. And we're starting to go more into our own IPs. You see in the release of Master, things are happening. And um, I I love the passion that we have here for storytelling and um I can't let that not get out to the world,
mm,
and we're gonna do that in a way that is fun. It's for people to enjoy. It's for our, people that are at Steamroller to enjoy and be a part of and be challenged. So like all that like, oh my God, I sound so dreamy talking about it. But I haven't lost that passion for working with these guys since day one. I know
Mm,
that sounds real cheesy and real ridiculous, but um, I think that that itch to learn and be a part of that bigger picture and to be a voice for the artist as well as pushing our own stories out really excites me.
mm,
I, and it's different every single day.
mm,
Um, whether it's working on communication skills, it's training someone up, it's getting a project going, it's handling an issue. I mean, it's all like, all right, what's the best way to handle this? And I've definitely made a lot of mistakes with, overwhelming myself and scheduling. And I'll never forget, I love sharing this, and Jill's probably like, just stop sharing the secret sauce. But put breathing a space within your calendar. And I know
mm,
this sounds like, so yeah, of course, that makes sense. We need time to reflect and we need time to process. But when you start to get into the, leadership roles, you can find yourself, you want to be a part of everything, and you want to observe and learn from those that are the other people who are running that meeting, or you want to make sure you're giving enough time to your artist, but you cannot do your job properly if you do not allow your brain some time to process what you've just gone through in
mm.
whatever meeting it is. Because I tend to make all of my better decisions when I've had that space. Or, a lot of people have this in shower time, myself included, where you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
that's it. That's it. And I mean, it is so real. If you
Mm,
have meetings back to back all day and then you go camp out on the couch and you fall asleep at 8, which I have done, you wake up the next morning, you're like, I need all my meeting notes because is a whirlwind of a day. A
mm.
whirlwind of a day.
Yeah.
So I just can't emphasize for any like young leaders out there that that is just super important to do.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
it's been crucial to my process. Yeah.
Oh, I bet. Also, you want to set an example of those coming up after you. So, yeah.
Yes. Fight that. If you're a workaholic, you got to fight
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
personality trait. There's a balance, and I think you training yourself, like you said, you become a role model for those that have that same quality, and you definitely have to, make sure there's stoppers in place to make sure everybody's taking care of
Mm,
themselves. It's really important to do. Um, yeah, there's no point in being overworked in this industry. I mean, we are making games, we are
yeah.
animating, we're having fun.
Mm.
Um, no point in trying to kill yourself trying to do it.
No, there's always going to be a next project. So, no,
Yeah.
it's not a sprint.
No, 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 no.
Well, with I think maybe work-life balance is a good way to wrap this up because I don't want to take up all your life balance time. So,
So this has been wonderful.
Amanda, thanks again so much for doing this. This was a real treat, and I wish you all the best with your expansion and continued endeavor at Steamroller. It looks like it'll be fun.
I'm excited and I appreciate you talking to me. This has been really, really great. And I mean, who doesn't just kind of want to geek out about the industry and animation? And thank you for allowing this opportunity to do just that.